Flying private. The other Mile High Club. From celebs to billionaire entrepreneurs, those who can afford it, board it.
The business is doing well because we started during Corona time, and then it was unexpected rise of private jet requests. So when regular airlines, they stopped their flights, so people, they hopped to private, and once they hopped to private, they didn't want to go back to regulars.
But fuel emissions are linked to climate change, and the data on that is dire. The latest scientific report delivered a final warning. If governments don't act now, we'll hit our global warming threshold by 2030.
The 1.5-degree limit is achievable, but it will take a quantum leap in climate action. This report is a clarion call to massively fast-track climate efforts by every country and every sector and on every time frame. In short, our world needs climate action on all fronts, everything, everywhere, all at once.
Is private jet usage really one of the biggest contributors to this soon-to-be irreversible climate emergency? And what, if anything, is being done about it? Perhaps few events evoke the private jet-setting crowd like the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where the world's business and political elite gather to, among other things, advance international climate policy. But according to a study commissioned by Greenpeace, the private jet traffic during last year's forum essentially doubled, and more than half of those flights were short. About the distance from Davos to Paris short, or even shorter.
That's the majority. That's the majority of flights. People don't get on private jets for like long flights where there are not necessarily alternatives.
Flight data gathered by the now defunct Twitter accounts Celebrity Jets and Elon Jet lifted that veil, exposing not only the frequency, but the extreme brevity of private jet flights among the upper crust. From Kylie Jenner's infamous 17-minute private jet ride from LA to Camarillo, to Drake's 18-minute jaunt in his home province of Ontario, celebrities appeared to be using their jets the way ordinary folks make trips to the grocery store. In fact, Elon Musk disliked this particular type of notoriety so much that he dismantled those private jet tracking accounts soon after he purchased Twitter, while others, looking to keep their private jet travel away from the public eye, are increasingly hiring tracking companies to help their flight info vanish.
Aircraft owners and operators, so they block aircraft details on flight radar and tracking services. So for example, when I search a tail number on Google, so I see blocked, so I don't see history of that aircraft, where it went to, and then how many flights it done last year.
The average American emits about 16 tons of carbon dioxide annually, compared to 8 tons for the average European. But a single short private jet flight or two can emit about as much CO2 into the atmosphere. That doesn't mean Kylie, Drake, and Elon are the biggest emitters, however. Not even close.
We aim to conquer the US market, of course. It's the biggest market in the world, so out of 5 million flights a year, so the US, they fly 3 million flights a year alone.
And America's top private jet emitters in 2022 belong to some pretty familiar names, and some not. But it's number 5, billionaire Jared Isaacman, in fact, who back in 2021 funded the very first private jet flight into space, a journey whose origins go all the way back to the 1960s. Because it was in 1963 that Bill Lear created the first purpose-built private plane, the Learjet 23. Now, it wasn't officially the first, but it's credited with really igniting the market. And from that point forward, new jets, new players, and new measures helped to fortify the industry, including the first airport made exclusively for private jet use, Le Bourget in Paris.
Aujourd'hui, on ne peut plus se permettre d'avoir de telles émissions à l'aune des catastrophes climatiques qui sont en train de se dérouler partout sur Terre et qui font des milliers de victimes. Et ce n'est que le début. Donc, on considère que ces gens sont de réels criminels climatiques. Et on ne laisse pas des criminels courir les rues. Quand il y a quelqu'un qui est un serial killer, on le met en prison. Donc pourquoi ces personnes auraient le droit de continuer leurs émissions de gaz à effet de serre, d'avoir un passe-droit à polluer et d'être en totale impunité?
As an exclusively private jet airport, Le Bourget is at the center of campaigns by climate activist groups like Extinction Rebellion and Attack. But it is also at the center of a new policy aimed at curbing short private jet flights. Back in 2021, the French government decided to use an EU article known as the Air Services Regulation to argue that it could suspend certain flight connections on environmental grounds if there were good transportation alternatives. After some legal tussling, in 2022, the French government implemented a ban out of Le Bourget of just 3 routes.
I mean, it was still a first. It's still an important symbol as well to say that there should not be flights between Paris and Nantes. It doesn't make sense. You shouldn't have that option when you have like a very fast train between the two. So it had the merits of being a first and starting the discussions.
While up for review in 2025, for the time being, the 3 routes ban will likely remain just that.
There is, from the government, no plan as such to expand it, and we're not aware of other member states going down that route.
Let's go back to our timeline. Back in the 90s, demand for private jets had taken off, especially among the business elite. The age of corporate jets had begun. Companies also started to offer partial jet ownership and chartering, so clients no longer needed to own their own plane. One increasingly popular way the private jet industry aims to reduce its carbon emissions is not by flying less, but rather emphasizing the ways they're offsetting their carbon footprint.
So we're planning to launch a new program where we dedicate some percentage of our profit to back to the environment. So we will be paying them. I cannot tell you the number, maybe 1 to maybe 5% of the profit to environment organizations to compensate these emissions by our clients.
I think if you want our views on carbon offsetting schemes, in short, is that it's a smokescreen. It really is just a way for these companies to continue doing business as usual and pretending they're actually dealing with the consequences.
Carbon credits programs in sustainable aviation fuels, or SAFs, are attractive to private jet passengers, but they're also a lot more expensive and easy to opt out of.
Eco-friendly fuel is usually like a 50% higher in cost, and then we do that on demand. If some people say we want eco-friendly fuel, so sure, there's a ticket, so pay and go. But other clients, so they use normal jet fuel.
Technological advancements have gotten the private jet industry to where it is today. A billionaire market with a billionaire clientele who appear less interested in developing eco-fuels than they do in flying into orbit and beyond. Right now, private jets account for only around 4% of all aviation emissions, yet they're still responsible for more greenhouse gases each year than all of Denmark. They're not more greenhouse gas emitting than the beef industry or the US military. But for many climate activists, private jets symbolize the intersection of climate justice and rising inequality.
The way those most impacted by climate change are the ones least responsible for it, and the ones who proportionately individually speaking have the biggest impact are the one obviously getting away with it and not having to suffer the consequences. And I think private jets are really good in that way, that they're the perfect embodiment of that, and it happens on all sorts of topics, but it's never as extreme as it is with private jets, where one person with one private jet flight can negate several other people's efforts, to try and improve their day-to-day emissions.